They weren't soldiers, but they suffered the worst of war. This is the chilling reality of World War II's forgotten victims. During World War II, countless nations fell under Nazi occupation, plunging their people into a nightmare of fear and brutality. Cities and towns became grim landscapes where bodies hung from lampposts, serving as a stark warning to those who dared resist. The terror extended beyond executions. Women, in particular, faced unimaginable horrors at the hands of occupying forces. While the Nazis were infamous for their atrocities, they were not the only perpetrators. Soviet troops and even certain Allied forces committed acts of violence and revenge, leaving countless women traumatized. In France, for instance, women accused of collaborating with German soldiers were publicly humiliated and subjected to cruel punishments by the French resistance. This documentary delves into the untold suffering of women across Europe and the Pacific during World War II, shedding light on the harrowing realities they endured. From forced labor and assault to acts of vengeance disguised as justice, their stories reveal a dark and often overlooked chapter of history. During World War II, a peculiar trend emerged within the German-occupied territories, French women openly walking around in their German soldier boyfriends' uniforms. Paris, in particular, was seen by many in the Wehrmacht as a paradise, a city where soldiers could indulge in fleeting romances with women who seemed to cater to their every desire. For some French women, relationships with German soldiers were driven by genuine love, while for others it was a means of survival or opportunity. German officers, with their power and resources, often promised their lovers a secure future, marriage, a home in Germany, and a new life after the war. Some women fell for these promises, while others simply sought comfort in a time of chaos. However, the occupation wasn't just about romance. Many women were vulnerable and taken advantage of, especially with their husbands and boyfriends away fighting in the French army. Some women even followed their German lovers into war-torn regions and prison camps. As a result, around 200,000 children were born to French mothers and German fathers, with similar numbers seen in Norway, 12,000, and even the Channel Islands, 900. But as the tides of war shifted and German forces retreated, those who had once been seen as companions became targets. Liberators and resistance fighters viewed these women as collaborators, and the punishment was severe. Public shaming, violence, and forced head-shaving became brutal symbols of retribution for what was called horizontal collaboration, a term that branded these women as traitors, whether their relationships were voluntary or not. That during and after World War II, women in occupied France and other territories faced brutal retribution for their relationships, real or alleged, with German soldiers. What followed was a wave of public humiliation and violence, known as the Ugly Carnival, where women were paraded through the streets, their heads forcibly shaved in front of jeering crowds. Accused of horizontal collaboration, these women were subjected to severe punishments, from public beatings to being stripped and branded with swastikas. In some cases, they were even killed. The practice of head shaving as a form of public shaming dated back to medieval times, but during the war, it became a powerful and cruel symbol of vengeance. Many of these women had simply sought survival, trading companionship for food and protection, while others were falsely accused out of personal grudges. This brutality wasn't limited to France. Similar acts of punishment occurred in Norway, where women accused of fraternizing with Germans were exiled or imprisoned. Even their children were deemed illegitimate and ostracized. The fear of collaboration ran so deep that some women were executed on mere suspicion, sometimes without any chance to defend themselves. Despite the horrors of Nazi occupation, the aftermath of liberation brought its own form of terror. While some Allied soldiers sympathized, others were shocked by the raw violence unleashed upon these women. Today, the haunting images of shaved heads and public trials remain stark reminders of the darker side of wartime justice, where moral outrage often turned into mob brutality. During World War II, the Eastern Front was one of the most brutal theaters of combat, where Soviet forces, including thousands of female soldiers, faced staggering losses. As Stalin sought to replenish his decimated ranks, women were initially assigned to support roles such as medics and anti-aircraft operators. However, the war's intensity soon demanded their direct involvement in combat, leading to a remarkable legacy of female snipers, pilots, and partisans.